I also work the PBA coverage for BBC Radio. So, yun.
Ako, I'll never forget coverages with
hindi ka pa tinatanong, Quinito, pumasok ka na naman. Dito lang.
Sabi sa atin,
Wala ka na naman
tayo ng pasok.
Okay.
Talaga namang feeling blessed ang inyong 2OT dahil apat sa pillars ng Philippine sportscasting makakasama natin yon. Outside of maybe the late great Joe Cantada, ito na yung Mount Rushmore ng Philippine sports broadcasting. We've got, of course, the Dean Quinito Henson, Sir Ed Picson is there, Sir Sev Sarmenta, and the one and only Dr. J. Andiao. Kasama namin ngayon ni Carlo. Carlo, what a day this day.
Tagal na nating pinangarap, Maguno, makasama yung mga iniidolo natin sa larangan ng sports broadcasting. Sirs, thank you so much for joining us here on 2OT.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mahirap yung Mount Rushmore. Gusto sabihin, retired tayo lahat.
Hindi naman din. Actually, no, sa inyong apat, it's a weird na... Actually, weird, right? Not a lot of people know that at one point or another in your storied careers, nagkasama-sama kayo sa broadcast booth as anchor and analyst. Si Dr. J, si Quinito, nagkasama na. Most famously, do sa 1998 finals ng NBA, which is uso ngayon dahil puro last stand sa pinagkikwentuhan. And si Sir Sev at si Sir Ed, back in the day, naghahilinhinan pa kayo ng first game, second game kung sino anchor analyst, di ba mga sir?
Sa radyo, yes. Nag-umpisa kami ni Seb sa PBA, sa radio coverage ng PBA. And ganoon yung setup namin. Nag-usap lang. Actually, first game, halimbawa, si Seb ang anchor, ako ang analyst. Tapos second game, palit naman kami. Tapos nung medyo matagal-tagal na, intindihan na kami. O Seb, hindi mo na ako papasok na, ikaw muna. 2 game ka. Tapos babawi ako sa kanya. Ganun lang yun.
Lalo na
solo na yun.
Oo. Yaka-yaka. Di ba, Sebio?
Yes, sir. Pero ang time na yun, una, mas experience si Ed kasi he had done already the radio sa grupo ng BBC Ed, ano? Yung cover, no?
When the PBA was with BBC 2, I also worked the PBA coverage for BBC Radio. So, yun.
Ako, I'll never forget coverages with
hindi ka pa tinatanong, Quinito, pumasok ka na naman. Dito lang.
Sabi sa atin,
Wala ka na naman.
tayo ng pasok.
Basta lang.
Yes, the Dean. What
Alam mo na, nakaka-excite kasi pag nakikita ko si Ed Picson eh.
Ako na naman ginawa mong palusot. Ganyan ka naman kahit kailan.
Yan ang aming samahan ni Ed Picson that I really remember. Yung palitan namin ng mga remarks that make the coverage so enjoyable. So that's really what I miss. And, I find myself on the receiving end of so many fans asking kung kailan pa babalik si Ed Picson sa PBA, sa boxing. And ngayon at nandiyan si Ed Picson, dapat malaman natin sa kanya, kailan ba ang comeback ni Ed Picson?
Teka muna, Quinito, pabatingin mo muna si Andy. Hindi pa nagsasalita. Tumira ka na.
Iniiwas mo na naman yung tanong.
Tingnan
mo, iniiwas mo na naman.
Ganun talaga yung dalawang yan. Kaya pasensya na kayo dyan. They're good friends. That's why. But in reality, I've never worked as an anchorman. The only time I did that was si Joe, sinadya yata niya, nagpalit talaga yun. Hindi nalilate yung taon rin yun. Sinadya yata niya i-late ang sarili niya para solo ako lumabas sa mga 5 minutes. I think this was the early part of the years that we were just starting with vintage, and I think he wanted me to get a lot of confidence. So I had to do both as an anchorman, as an analyst. But I've never been an anchorman. And when we went to the NBA Finals with Quinito, 97, 98, 99, I told him, Quinito, you would be a better anchorman than I am. Could you give that to me that I would be the analyst? And he readily agreed. No? And I think it worked out for us.
Sinadya ni Joe yun, sigurado.
Tama si Dr. J. Kasi ako yung nasa baba, nasa radyo ako noon. Pinakyat mo ako noon, Andy. Sabi mo, samahan kita. O di sinimahan kita ng 1 quarter 1986. Tapos dumating si Joe, tatawa-tawa doon sa may booth natin sa Ultra. O sige, tuloy niyo. Ito ta naman, naumpisahan yun.
Parang sinadya niya talaga yun.
Brad yun. That's actually a common trick in broadcasting sa radyo, ganon. When we were disc jockeys, ganon yung mga style ng mga senior eh. Kasi dati 'di ba turntables, no? Tumutugtog yung isang plaka and then yung isang turntable tapos lilipat ka sa kabila. Ang gagawin ng senior, they would sneak up on you from behind, biglang tatanggalin yung arm, yung para wala tsaka yung plaka. Kaya pag pindot mo ng buton para umandar yung wala kang plaka. So papanik ka ngayon. O kaya nag-newscast ka, hawak-hawak mo yung script, sisindihan ng lighter yung script mo. Mga antics ng mga senior nung mga lumang panahon. And that what Joe did to Andy is typical of para mga baptism of fire, kumbaga. Yan yung mga ginagawa noon. Pero it was all in good fun.
Yeah, good faith.
Dari Joe Cantada. Ako po, napapanood ko na lang siya with the reruns on PBA Rush. I'm lucky enough na may mga records pa ng mga games na ginawa nila before and I get to hear his voice. But what was it like working with Joe Cantada in the Dr. J?
Well, alam mo kasi may pangalan na siya at saka you respected him. No? He was a mentor to me. And he knew in the beginning na medyo wala tayong experience sa communication or to be on TV, on whatever, no? And he was always there to try to help you out. So, pinagbibigyan kanya na, sige, pumasok ka ng pumasok. Dahil, syempre, in the beginning, nag-umpisa kami, may usapan kami na ang anchorman analyst, more like 70-30 of the airtime, no? More on the anchorman, 30% analyst. Then maybe it went to 60-40. But he was always there, just come in when you want to come in. So eventually, you get a lot of confidence with your own, with yourself. Kaya naging madali. And he had a great voice. And I don't have a great voice, but he had a great voice. Good singer rin yun. Marunong kumanta yung partner. Nung araw, kumakanta sa club yan sa mga DV Boulevard, no? Pupuntahan ko pa yun. But he had a great voice, so sort of balanced when we were together.
How about Dean? What can you say about Sergio Cantada?
Ako, hinamon ako ng suntukan yan eh. There was one time, nag-meeting kami sa Vintage, and before I got into the air, one of my responsibilities was coming up with vocabulary, some observations about how the coverage was coming along. Meron siguro ako nasabi na hindi niya nagustuhan. So, hinamon niya ako ng suntukan. Hindi naman ako makikipagsuntukan sa kanya. Ang laki-laki ng katawan niya. But we shook hands after that, and we also got together on some coverages. I remember him to be very, very supportive. That's one thing about Joe, no? Because he was so confident and so sure of himself that he wanted his partner to also have the same kind of confidence. Because pag nagkakaroon ng confidence yung dalawang partners, mas maganda yung spontaneity and also the reception of the crowd. But if I can remember, it might have been, and I'm not sure now if my memory serves me right. I think the very first time I came on the air was back in 1979 as a guest analyst. I think it might have been the PBA selection against the Washington Bullets when they came. And I was like the NBA correspondent of the Philippines. So kinuha nila ako as something like a resource person. And para nagsalita yata ako noon during that coverage, and Joe Cantada was there. But I didn't start coming out regularly in the PBA until about 1986. So Ed, ikaw naman.
Di na, ikaw na, tapusin mo na.
But can you guys remember yung game na yon, Washington Bullets versus PBA Selection, 1979? Dumating dito sina Elvin Hayes, Wes Anseld.
I think I was the Coliseum barker then, Quinito.
Ganon. And was I on the coverage panel?
I'm not sure. Hindi ko maalala.
Para si Joe
kinalimutan
Cantada.
ko talaga. Hindi ko alam.
Para si Joe Cantada. Tapos, kinuha nila ako parang as a resource guy. Kasi I was giving out statistics at that time of the NBA players. So, I might have had some kind of role in the panel.
Yeah. Pwede.
Ang cute mo, Ed.
Sige ka. Tuloy mo yan.
Ako naman, I remember so well.
Hindi ikaw.
Tutuloy ko na. Yung partnership namin ni Andy Howe nung 97 and 98 NBA Finals. How can anyone forget that? Those were really memorable moments in anyone's basketball career because Andy, nakita natin live and in the flesh as it was happening, the last dance.
Yeah, that was very true. And I certainly was very memorable. Saka alam mo, if you don't get the experience of going there, covering all those games. And at that time, partner, if Quinito remembers well, ang daming countries na papadala ng mga coverages because he was really the most recognized athlete in the world. And everybody wanted to be Spain, Italy, France, lahat, pati China, pati Japan, There's a lot of people there. And, ang maganda yung the day before or the game day after, you can go to the practices. Tapos there are what you call this all over the each particular team. Lahat nakahiwalay yan. Kanya-kanyang maraming pumupunta dyan with their boom mics and so on and so forth. But Jordan always in the press room. Hindi mo pwede doon sa halo-halo tayo. Doon ako. But the nice point apart from that, they will let you go out after matapos yung mga interviews, paalisin kayo. Kami ni Quinito wise kami. Yung mga nagbabantay doon, mga the black security guards, binobola namin, kinukwento namin. Para hindi kami nakakaalis kaagad, napapanood namin. And there was a particular practice, I don't know if Quinito remembers, si Rodman, paisi-isi, paupo-upo doon sa, ang sinabi sa kanya ni Michael, hey, practice, kaya tayo kagad siya. Evaluates the leadership. I like it. Really fantastic for us.
Katatapos lang today nung dito sa documentary episodes 5 and 6. And it seemed like especially for the four of you because you were already really in the thick of sportscasting back in the 90s. Yung first three sa dami ng drama nun na on-court, first three championships, parang pagdating nung next three, nung nakuha na sina Rodman, sina Kukoc, parang given na ba na magcha-champion sila every year? No? Ito na yung 96 to 98, especially that last dance. Was that the easier one as compared to the first three?
Could you give me that opportunity to answer that? When Quinito and I flew for the, I think, 96, 97 championship, we were there and we didn't know if Chicago was going to make the finals. If you remember, Quinito, I think with the Indiana Pacers all the way to the 7th game.
Yep.
And we were in the air. We didn't know until we landed kung saan kami pupunta. Of course, we were going to the West Coast, and then our ticket would have been whether we go to Chicago or we go to Utah, because we did not know who was going to win and that really hurt us because we weren't able to watch the game. So it was not a given. And you have to remember, hindi biro yung team na 91, 92, 93 na yun. I mean, look at the guys that played there. It's not a joke. J. Armstrong and all those guys. That was a real solid team also. And the second year, talagang palakas na ang laro ni Michael at saka ni Scottie Pippen. But they had a lot of good guys. They had Bill Cartwright. They had a lot of good players on that team. So it wasn't really a given thing, especially no 97, 98. Medyo, even a lot of people actually in the States, I remember, Utah was favored in the second time around, the 98 season. more than 97 talaga inaasahan nila. But I think Utah was able to get the home court advantage ng 2-3-2. So they were favored in the 98, the last dance talaga.
Yung mismong last dance, na. How was it here locally, Sir Seven, Sir Ed, during that era na, ito na nga, patapos na si Michael Jordan?
Saan si Seb? Ikaw, Seb.
Vintage ba yung at that time? 96, 97? Yun ba yung years na vintage na nag-cover ng NBA o hindi ako sure?
Yeah, vintage.
Vintage was the one who covered 97, starting 97. And the first time any Arab country sent anybody to go there live for the finals.
At that time kasi nakaalis ako sa vintage na nasa college ball ako at that time. So wasn't so much into the NBA at the time. But it was popular. But Filipinos wanted to bet for Utah at that time. Di ba? Alam mo naman, ang underdog eh. Alam mo naman, Pinoy plus para sa Utah at that time.
Yung pagka-dehadista, lumalabas pa rin, ano?
Sirs, if I may ask, Sir, the Dean and Dr. J had this great opportunity to cover the many games in the NBA, especially in the finals. Pero syempre, part of the experience is not just covering the games, but actually traveling with each other. Kasi it's something na hindi ganun kadalas nangyayari. How fun was it, sirs? I'll start with Sir Sev. Just to be on the road, to be with some of these fine gentlemen. How did it help your camaraderie and how did it affect your on-cam chemistry?
Okay. Ako kasi nung Pacquiao third fight yata yun, Quinito, na magkasama tayo na tapos roommates kami ni Quinito. Ang natutunan ko doon, kasi yung flight namin yun, si Quinito hindi kumakain. Hindi siya, basta nasarap siya ng laptop niya, tira lang siya natira. Alis ako ng alis, kakain ako, bababa ako sa floor sa Las Vegas. Kakain kami Quinito, sulat siya, enjoy siya. Happy siya nung nangyari. Gulat ako biglang one day. Tara, baba tayo. Kain tayo. Lilibre ko kayo ng hotdog. Gulat ako, kumakain ko na Quinito Henson. Pero kasi Quinito had to write a lot of stuff and different things. But hanga-hanga how Quinito would be so immersed dun sa press room, recognized ka ng mga international boxing writers also as an authority. That was fun to watch.
How about you, Sir Ed? What were your fondest memories traveling on the road, covering PBA or boxing? Ano yung mga nangyayari?
Karamihan noon sa PBA was yung mga road games or provincial games. For boxing, Quinito and I covered Manny Pacquiao when, excuse me, he fought against 3K Battery in a place called Nakhon Si Tamarat in Thailand, where Manny Pacquiao was knocked out. And his crown was taken away from him even before the fight started kasi overweight siya. So that was a very sad coverage, no? Pero it was an experience kasi ang layo ng lugar. We had to take a plane from Bangkok to that place, no? Tapos parang parang baryo eh. Pero all of a sudden, makikita mo, merong malaking hotel, saka mall, yun lang. The rest of the place was talagang baryotic eh. And then the fight was in an open air stadium. We didn't have, if you recall, Quinito, wala tayong mga technician. There was nobody to assist us. We just had to look for the broadcast station. Merong dalawang microphone, may dalawang headset. We couldn't talk to anyone. No one spoke English. So we just picked up the headset and then started talking. Well, 3 rounds lang naman, so okay lang. We didn't even know if we could be heard because I was talking into the mic before the fight started. I was asking, can anyone hear me? Manila, can you hear me? Walang sumasagot eh. So sabi ko, might as well just, talk our heads off. Siyempre, trabaho ni Quinito yun. So wala akong problema. Si Quinito na dumagdag doon. But the thing was, when we went back to Bangkok, kasama na namin si Manny, with his trainer, at that time, si Baby, forgot his last name. Anyway, and then si Rod Nazario and his partner, si Lito Mondehar. And then we were in this really honky-tonk hotel. I remember the name. It was Florida Hotel. And the last time I was in Bangkok, I looked it up, nandun pa. Ganun pa rin ang itsura. Magka-roommate din kami ni Quinito. Tili ng tili ito dahil nakakita ng ipis. Anyway, tapos, the reason why we were in that hotel, sabi ni Rod Nazario, was because the cook was Filipino. So, mag-order kami ng Filipino food. But pagdating namin doon, all of a sudden, sabi ni Rod Nazario, okay, we're giving you 2 more days, R&R. Dito tayo sa we were supposed to leave, kaagad after the fight. Sabi ni Rod Nazario, 2 more days. So we were there 2 more days. And usually, kami dalawa ni Quinito, lalakad, and then Manny and his trainer, lalakad. We met these Filipinos who took us around, may kotse, gano'n. Minsan sumasabay sa amin si Manny papunta sa downtown. As pagbalik namin, we would have dinner together with Manny and his trainer. That was nice. That was the nice part. Pero bugbog sarado si Manny noon because obviously he wasn't in shape and he had to try and get his weight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that, so natalo siya ron. But that was his last fight as a flyweight. 112 siya noon 112 pounds. And he said, hindi ko na kaya talaga itong 112. So he jumped from 112, imbis na dumaan ng 115, dumiretso sa 118, di ba, Quinito?
122.
Huh?
Actually, dumiretso siya sa 122. He skipped 2 divisions.
Yun. Naalala mo ba yun?
Oo. Ang sarap na kasama si Ed Picson sa kwarto.
May memorya ka pa rin pala. Okay lang.
Can you explain ba't masarap kasama si Sir Ed Picson sa kwarto?
Well, unang-una makwento. And, there's never a dull moment. Hanggang ngayon, pag nag-uusap kami sa telepono, lokohan, gano'n. Siguro kung seryoso ang usapan namin, out of 30 minutes, siguro mga 5 minutes lang ang seryoso namin. So, di 5 minutes. Di ba? Tama?
Ang sinasabi niya, out of 30 minutes, 5 minutes lang akin. 25 minutes kanya.
Ngayon. But it's always fun to be with Ed and Sev. I remember that Manny Pacquiao fight. And especially si Andy because that was a very difficult role para sa akin because naging anchor ako noon. But what made it so easy was because you've got Andy Howe as your analyst, so you can't go wrong. But I remember the first times when we did the NBA Finals, Andy, I don't know if you can recall, before the game kasi, you're given 2 minutes to do what they call the unilateral. It's an introduction na wala kang take 2. You're being shown satellite to your home TV station. And kabado ko that I would write a script for what I would say on a big, yung parang kartolina ba, gano'n? And I would ask a third man, whether it be an American or a Filipino, kung meron kaming kasamang producer, to hold it up na parang meron akong idiot board while I was talking because I was so afraid to make a mistake. Every time we would do a unilateral, all the way until the end of my NBA Finals coverage, I would always be so nervous and such a relief pagkatapos ng 2-minute unilateral.
Alam mo, laging challenge yung unilateral, Kasi sa akin, kahit sino yung partner ko, kung si Quinito, o sino man yung analyst, sa akin challenge lagi yung, kasi puro Americans, yung crew, we wanted to prove that the Pinoys could speak. Alam mo, Quinito, isang fight, when we were waiting for Manny Pacquiao in the third Marquez fight, at tagal, kasi tinatahi pa si Manny, and it took a while for the Americans to realize that we were anchormen and we were. Remember, Andy, sinabi ni Joe dati, Dr. J, those are not our colleagues. Those are the crew, and we are the commentators. Sabi niya. Ang sa akin, I always wanted to prove, and I guess Ed and the others know this, that when you're in that unilateral, it's a showcase. Eh. Tama, Quinito, walang take two ron eh. Alam mo sabihin, sorry, pakiulit. They have no time because other broadcasters are waiting for their turn also.
Going back to that original
Spurs.
question, Magu,
Yes,
about Joe,
Okay.
I just wanted to, Carlo, I just wanted to share, something that I experienced very early on in my PBA, actually sportscasting career. No? I had come from radio as a disc jockey. I was playing music, and then I got into sports. One of my earliest memories about Joe Cantada was there was a championship fight, Luisito Espinosa against Galaxy, and I was hired as a writer. Ako writer, ang anchorman was Joe Cantada, and then his analyst was the late Ernie Rivera. So okay lang, may meeting kami, and then somehow, I don't know why, nawala si Joe. The producers, the network, decided to drop Joe. And Joe was really, very disheartened. No? And he tried to find out what happened. It seemed that there was an influential person who persuaded the sponsors to request the network to not use Joe Cantada. So anyway, sabi ni Joe, okay lang. Sabi niya gano'n, you don't want me, that's fine. So, siguro mga less than a week before the fight, no? And they couldn't find anyone else. They settled for me to sub for Joe. So I was writer and anchorman. And I was very hesitant. Tinawagan ko si Joe. Sabi ko, Joe, paano ba to? Accept it by all means. Sabi niya gano'n, of course, this is your big break. And gano'n. Sabi niya gano'n, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Sabi niya, you had nothing to do with what happened. Ganyan. So I accepted it. And then somehow, naayos yung gusot. And they brought Joe back in. And they asked me to call Joe to tell him to please come back. Everything's forgiven and kung pwede, bumalik ka. So I called him. I said, Joe, they want you back. Sabi ko, and I'm happy. Sabi ko. Sabi niya, okay, I will go back. Sabi niya gano'n. I will do it on two conditions. One, sabi niya, I will not accept the talent fee. Sabi niya, this is not about the money. Sabi niya, so I will not accept the talent fee. Two, sabi niya, they need to keep you in the panel. Tatlo na tayo. Kasi sabi ko, atras na ako, ikaw na, which is the original cast. Sabi niya, no. I will only accept it if one, they don't pay me because I will not accept any talent fee. And two, you retain your position as co-anchorman with me and Ernie Rivera. And that, that was really a class act by Joe Cantada. Idol talaga yung tao niya. And we all miss him. Yeah.
Yun nga, no? With all of these stories circulating, but first, acknowledge muna natin yung dami ng natutuwa na nakikita at nadidinig kayo magkakasama na naman. Guys like sila Dave Ramirez, Hernan Toledo Omania, and even si Direk Nick Earnshaw. Sabi ni Direk Nick, had the privilege to work with every single one of you, cherish every moment. Ako kasi, with all of these stories that you guys are saying, yun ba yung naka-influence din sa inyo? Having worked with all four of you, and me personally, naging direct boss ko pa si Sir Ed Picson nung Epic Proportions ang may hawak ng Radyo PBA. Kaya ba ganun na lang din ang alalay nyo dun sa mga katulad namin who came after you guys? Kaya ba inaalalayan nyo rin kami na maging maayos yung pagsalo ng sportscasting industry na to?
I'll start off very quickly. Hindi nababanggit si Pingoy Pengson, I love listening to Pingoy in the PBA Rush games that are being presented nowadays. I love the way he would open the doors for the analyst, and he would always acknowledge. Willie Marshall, our commissioner, used to say, pagod siya, statistician, pag si Pingoy yung anchor. Kasi yung score sheet niya, simut yun, front court scoring, back court scoring. And Pingoy was our parang, if Joe was the kuya, kasi Joe would go out with us, si Pingoy would not. Pingoy was more a father figure sa grupo. And he had so much experience also being a DJ, a sportscaster before. And he loved the approach that everybody was trying to, he learned new ways of saying things. Sabi nga ni Quinito doon sa isang column niya, he loved creating yung cardiac game, nicknames for the quick brown fox. Sa kanya yung, sa kanya yung Skywalker. And he would always open doors and he would always compliment everybody. Ang galing kasi ni Andy. Si Waki kasi tama nga yan. Wow! Si Quinito tama nga na. Mali ako dun. And he would watch the games that he had done the day after. Iba rin yung contribution ni Pingoy Pengson doon sa grupo na. So ang question ni Magu is, ganun din ba yung pag-alalay? Yes, and I would like to think that we are, compared to probably other broadcast professions, this is more generous than others. Hindi nawawalan ng differences, konting kiskisan, but madaling nasosolve because the game's the thing.
So, Dr. J, you've been also, a mentor to a lot of us, mapa-anchor, mapa-analysts. Does it also come from you being helped out when you were starting in this industry as well?
First of all, paring Sev and paring Ed, we're close, And then, of course, Quinito, I've always called him as a partner. Magkasama kami niyan. So, like you said, international trips. Kahit yung mga all-star game na ginagawa namin dito, pag nagkasama kami, the camaraderie is not inside the room. Sometimes, hindi mo kami magkasama. They always give me a benefit of the doubt. Minsan, mag-isa lang ako. Alam mo yan. Then, the first time na kasama ko si Quinito at saka si Abet, kasama ko yung anak ko si Atom. So, the first Chicago-Utah games, the finals. So, but sa amin, even when we eat together, we talk together. Kasi umiinom, nung araw, umiinom ako. Pero retired na ako sa inom, matagal na. More than 20 years na ako hindi umiinom. So,
nalungkot naman ako dyan.
Umito na ako niyan. Si Sev, okay, but Quinito doesn't drink either. But he's, when you have the time to discuss with him things, he's really learned. Ang sipag niya si Quinito, sobra. Sa mga coverages namin sa abroad, ang sipag niya, partner. I mean, press room, he would ask questions, he would go to different players. You remember Byron?
Party yata sa bahay ni Quinito.
Brian Russell, naalala mo Quinito? Oo. Sinasagot sa atin of Utah, no? He was always trying to guard Jordan, but he always had a problem with it. And, these sort of things. So, I think more than anything else, naalala ko pala yung fight ninyo, come to think of it, because I watched it on TV, yung natalo si Manny Pacquiao. Nagulat ako, natalo yung pala, overweight talaga. Because remember, it was very hot. Remember?
Yeah.
I was watching here and I said, 3K yung kalaban something like that.
3K battery.
Oh,
Legend 3K battery.
So, sabi ko, natalo ito. Paano natalo ito? So, we were sad. But, we were happy for everybody. Now, ako hindi ako nagtuturo ng mga mga bata ngayon. Ang tinuturoan ko lang yung mga babae. Ito talaga, you ask all the girls in vintage, yung mga courtside interviewers. Ayun ang hilig ko. Kung gumaling sila.
Yung babae o yung interview?
Yung babae. Ano pala? Wala kung paano mga questions sila. Minsan yung mga
tama yun.
Mahina pa ang kumpiyansa And sometimes, they insist on reading and writing it down, and then which I don't think is right. If you look at some of the interviewers, especially the NBA mga babae, ang galing nila when they really know the game, and when they ask questions really pertinent to what happened in the game or what's happening in the game. And that's what I was hoping that most of our girls. But right now, we're doing well. Yung sa ating mga coverages, I think the girls are pretty good. Sila Risa and everything else pretty good.
Sige na, Quinito, gigil na gigil ka na. Sige na.
Ako gusto ko lang malaman kay Ed Picson. yung bang dapat na mabigyan si Joe Cantada ng talent fee, napunta ba sa'yo yun?
Huwag mo nang pakialaman yan.
Doble ata yung binili Picson during that coverage.
Sinasabi ni paring Andy, masipag ka kasi marami kang racket. Marami kang mga deadline. Totoo yung sinasabi ni Sev, nung nandun tayo sa SEA Games, nasa shuttle bus tayo, sasabihin namin, diretso tayo sa mess hall, kakain tayo. Sasabihin mo, teka, daan mo muna ako sa 7-Eleven, bibili lang ako ng siopaw. Kung bibilin pa niya, yung pinakamaliit na siopaw dahil nagtitipid. Kaya yaman niya, ang daming pera niya. Ang daming racket, hindi kumakain, di ba? Tapos Kastila, Mistiso, yaman yan.
Yung sinabi naman ni Andy kanina, and in answer to your question, Carlo, no? Ako, whoever it is I'm working with, I don't really see them as being juniors or being seniors or whatever. We're all together in this profession, and I just treat everyone equally in any way that we are able to make our partnership better. I'll do my very best. As far as the girls naman, what I try to do kasi is, because some of these players I get to know also on a very, very personal basis, especially yung mga imports. So kung meron ako napupulot ng mga balita tungkol sa kanila, I give it to the girls so that meron naman silang, if they want to use it, it's something extra for them to use, because sometimes I find out that the parents of this Phil-Am player just arrived the day before, na wala pang masyadong taong nakakaalam. So I give that as a juicy tidbit, and then I said, hanapin mo yung magulang. They're just in the court side. And then they do it. They go out to find out, they get the name, and then they find out the details. So for me, it's all a team effort. And the respect and trust for each other, I think it's very important for us to have a good coverage.
Lalo siguro pati si Sir Sev, not just with the fellow talents like us, Camila Carlo, the courtside people, pati sa production, Sir Sev, you try and impart as much wisdom na binibigay mo sa team natin, ano?
Well, may mellowing na rin. Dati, because you used to do it on a daily basis when I was producing the games before, I see yung PC. Pero alam mo, the technology kasi has improved tremendously. Our headsets are definitely better compared to the headsets we used to work with. The monitors are larger. Di ba? Mga players umaangal sa floor ngayon, dapat daw ganun, review. Wala nang TV ganun. Huy, magaling na lahat ng TV. So the monitors are larger. We have better facilities, I suppose. And we have to take note of the fact that our team, especially of late, whether it was vintage, solar, ABS, TV5, and through the years, because technology and the passion was still there. And we see that yung mga kasama natin today, when they do the game story, dati game story, wala talagang mahabang meeting. Si Joe Cantada, sino ba magkalaban? Hindi nga maalala ni Joe minsan kung sino yung ikot pa si Joe nun eh. It's a great battle between. Let me find out. Diba? Gaganon pa si Joe nung pero alam ni Joe yun, ha? Pinatatawa lang kami ni Joe at that time. But the production, they're good. They have no problems. They're doing, tayo dulo lang tayo eh. We are just the end. And the stories are, Ed, maganda yung mga storya nila tungkol sa iyo, ha? Na pag nag-explain, maganda yung mga storya nila tungkol sa iyo.
Actually, yung if I may, this industry, no, when you get into television or radio broadcasting, telecasting, whether you're behind the camera or in front of the camera, it's pressure laden eh. Ngayon, pag bago yung bata, bagong pasok yan, kung gugulatin mo pa at sisigawan mo or tatakutin mo, lalo manginginig yan, baka saan pa madala yan, di ba? And having gone through that process, no, alam naman natin na kailangan medyo alalay tayo. Of course, there are times na talagang hindi mo maaalis na maiirita ka. Minsan, one of my pet peeves noon was, sinasabi ko parati, huwag niyo isikreto yan. Meron kayong info and then sasabihin niyo sa akin after na nung usefulness ng information, tapos na di ba? Share the information. Don't keep it under wraps. Ngayon, when you see somebody coming up, hindi mo naman, ewan ko, no, it's not in our nature, no, or in the industry's nature to step on that guy or girl, no. Aalalayan mo, tutulungan mo as much as possible, bibigyan mo ng mga tips, di ba? For them to gain confidence, sabi nga ni Dr. J. Kasi pag wala kang confidence dito sa trabahong to, mangingisay ka sa harap ng camera o sa harap ng mikropono. And that's going to be a very, very traumatic experience. Mahirap yung nasa harap ka ng camera, alam mo ang daming tao nasa likod ng camera na yan. Di ba? And that thought alone is nerve-wracking. Di ba? So you try to help out these people na alam mo naman na talagang kumakabog ang dibdib niyan, di ba? Sasabog na ang dibdib nito, nakikita mo namumutla di ba? So you give them a word of encouragement and some tips, di ba? That's the most that we can do, and it's no big deal.
Sir Ed, napakaraming kwento ng mga production people about working with you. They love being beside you. Yung iba sa kanila nanonood ngayon, sila Mike San Juan is watching, Merv Villar is watching. Kanina nga si Nick Earnshaw was also watching, and now watching us is actually...
Yeah, kasi pinapainom ko sila pagkatapos. Kaya
ang hindi alam ni Nick Earnshaw, mas natutuwa tayong panoorin siya.
Oo.
Earnshaw.
Yung partner game.
Nanonood din po ngayon si Ma'am Jen Ablan Reyes, and I would just like to extend my gratitude to Ma'am Jen and JR Reyes for helping out in this difficult time. Nagpadala po sila ng tulong sa napakaraming production staff ng TV5 to be able to tie them out at least in the next couple of days. So Ma'am
Jen,
maraming salamat po for all the help. Yes, Mago?
Oy, yung MSJ naman, yung Mike San Juan, no choice yan kung hindi manood. Lockdown yun ng Tondoan Bawal lumabas yun, mababato ka ng barangay doon sa kanila yun. Pero si MSJ, kikwento ba dati? Yes, stop.
I wanted to ask, sigurado si Quinito, dapat itanong natin ito Quinito, maraming tao nagtatanong sa akin, ano ba talaga plano ng PB? Magbubukas pa ba sila o hindi?
Yung PBA?
Yeah. Will they have that one conference or?
Yeah. Mahirap talagang sabihin. They had an extended, very confidential video conference call within the Board of Governors. This is actually the third meeting, but this is the first formal board meeting that they had. There were a lot of very confidential issues that were discussed.
Nandiyan ka naman okay lang yun.
Oo, but sabi nila, they will wait until August to determine whether or not to continue the season or not. Mahirap talagang sabihin because you cannot put into prejudice the lives and the safety of the athletes, the coaches, the officials, and the staff, most especially the fans. So any ideas of having a short tournament similar to what the FIBA does in the FIBA World Cup, mahirap gawin yun because all it takes is just someone to test positive and all of a sudden the whole team will collapse. So I think the PBA priority right now is to make sure that all those affiliated with the league are kept whole in terms of their salaries. I think that's very, very important. And yun ang ginagawa nilang priority, to be able to, as much as possible, still continue to give yung sweldo ng mga tao. And once things settle down and normalize, then they will begin to think whether they can do one conference or maybe even suspend the whole season and just start afresh next year. It's really very difficult at this time.
So, paano naman tayo? I mean, you're talking about you know, the players, they have contracts. Everybody, they have contracts. Maguire na and Sev and
Hey,
Carlo, you know.
it's yung PBA personal yung inaalalayan ng PBA, but the people around the game, di ba? Iba.
Just, throughout the history of the PBA, do you think it has ever, had a challenge quite like this? May mga nangyari na ba in the past that challenged the PBA into almost canceling an entire season? If you would recall.
I think the PBA has had its ups and downs, no, but nothing quite like this. Hindi lang naman kasi ang PBA eh. Kahit kami sa boxing, reporters keep asking me, "What are your plans? What do you intend to do?" I said, how can we plan? We don't. Everything is up in the air. No one can say when this thing is going to end. There are plans for the end of the ECQ, GCQ, pero puro plano yan. Hindi pa sigurado yan, di ba? So nothing is definite insofar as how we're going to go back into normalcy. So like in boxing, ang hinihintay kasi ng lahat yung Olympics. Yung Olympics medyo ganun-ganun pa rin eh. Hindi pa rin natin alam, di ba? So how can you make plans? So for those the media people who keep asking me, I only have one reply. I really don't know, because there are no guidelines, there are no definite developments insofar as the Olympics, and what about international travel, di ba? Kasi kung maghahanda ka for the Olympics, hindi yung pwedeng yung mga boxer namin dito lang sila lang ang mag-i-sparring. Kailangan lumabas ka. Marami nagsasabi na baka malabo ang international travel for the rest of 2020. Paano? Di ba? So, everything is really up in the air. No one can really say. I don't know about the PBA. I know that they've been meeting, as Quinito said, but I really don't know how you can make concrete plans at this stage.
I guess the biggest issue is like in Taiwan and South Korea in the last couple of days, maybe 4 or 5 days, yung baseball leagues nila nagkaroon ng exhibition matches. But baseball is a non-contact sport. Yung boxing, yung basketball, hindi naman pwedeng hindi magdidikit eh. So talagang sa atin, sa mundo natin, matatagalan ano.
Mayroon talaga.
You look at the NBA situation, yun ang talagang matindi. Ang balita ko, although it's not being said openly, that some of the sponsors who've plunked in millions, maybe even billions of dollars for the playoffs are now saying, kung walang playoffs ang NBA, balik ko sa amin yung pera. Paano naman yan? How can you give back
feasible
the sponsors their money?
Feasible ba yung Disney World nila? Hindi rin uubra. You're gonna pull them away from their families.
Initially, there was a plan. Lahat ng mga Eastern Conference teams, magkukumpul-kumpul sila sa Florida, and then they will have a shortened playoffs just to be able to crown the champion. Yung mga Western Conference teams, doon naman sila sa Las Vegas. But then someone said, all it takes is one person to test positive, the whole thing will collapse. So it's really very difficult. Gumawa ng guidelines si Adam Silver. Talain mo ba? Sabi nila, okay, in some states, pwede magbukas na yung practice facility, but only 4 players can come at a time, and they cannot play a scrimmage. They will only get treatment and go individual drills. Bawal din yung head coaches and assistant coach. So, kalokohan eh. If you can do it in some states, what about the other states where you cannot do it? Some teams will have now an advantage. And how can you conduct a get-together of only 4 players at a time? It's really very difficult. As what Ed was saying, everything is up in the air.
The closest I remember, and Andy, I think you were treasurer of the PBA at that time, 86. We didn't know, katatapos lang ng, that's my first season eh. Katatapos lang nung change of government at that time. Took a while before the PBA started, and there were only 6 teams that were ready for that 86 season.
Yeah, you remember correctly, because we almost didn't have a season that year in 86, because we were only 5 teams after the 85 season. And Shell had just come in that year, the 85 season. Doon yata naging Rookie of the Year si Coach Leo Austria in 85 season. But anyway, that's why as part of I had a team. I was a governor and a manager of a team. We're very thankful for Fred Uitengso for Alaska to join us in '86. If not, we would have had no season. We could play with 5 teams. We had to have 6. That semblance. But we did have a very good conference, 3 conferences for 1986. It was very competitive. You know, it was really good. But that was the closest to parang. I remember that we almost had a season of professional basketball.
Hello?
So right now, for the benefit of everybody na hindi pa nabasa, aantayin nating lahat yung August at dun pa lang magdedesisyon yung PBA kung ano na mangyari. So minimum na lang natin ngayon is gonna be one conference, which is gonna be the Philippine Cup for all Filipino. Pero pagdasal naman natin hindi mangyari na baka walang PBA ngayong 2020 at maging 2021 season na yung kasunod. Yun yung ano, di ba, Dadin? That is where we stand right now.
That's true. Oo, ganun nga yun. It is also not practical to even think of a conference with imports. Una-una, international travel is very restricted. And secondly, what foreigner will want to fly all the way to the Philippines to play when you're not certain of the conditions in the Philippines? Not only that, when the import comes in, you have to quarantine him for 14 days. Mahirap yun. Mahirap talaga yung situation na ganito. So, we can almost dismiss yung import conference. Ang pag-asa natin is to preserve the Philippine Cup. And you know, we've already started the season. Yun nga lang, isang game lang ang nailaro. So, you can say there is one undefeated team and one team without a single win in this season so far.
So pag hindi natuloy, Dadin, 6 feet na San Miguel, ano?
Oo, tama. Yeah.
But moving forward, of course, we are all hoping and praying that a solution will be found soon. But yung pagka-miss po ng mga tao sa sports, you just feel that it's already a huge part of everyone's lives na nung nawala yung NBA, nawala yung PBA, parang butas yung buhay ng mga tao na hindi normal without spectator sport.
Yung sports, kasi yung takbuhan eh. At the end of the day, wala silang mapag-usapan na iba. Yung boxing, exciting sana yung Olympics. Ed, ilan yung papasok? Pasok na yung martial di ba? Ilang Pilipino?
Tsaka yung Magno, dalawa.
So ilan talaga pa? You were looking at how many para pumasok?
Well, we were hoping we could get 4 or 5, no? And there's one more qualifier dapat, no? Yung world qualifiers kasi yung natapos was for Asia, Oceania.
Okay.
Pero meron pang Americas. Oh, nandiyan great grandson ni Quinito.
Swerte talaga yan. Nasa bahay niya yung kanyang mga apo eh.
Apo niya sa tuhod. Yung Asia Oceania natapos, yung Africa natapos, yung America wala pa, yung Europe they were able to go 3 days tapos tinigil, no? So hindi natapos yung Europe. So tapos yung pang-5 yung world qualifiers where lahat labo-labo na yan. Wala pa yon. Yun ang inaasahan natin sana na mapupuntahan ng iba pa natin mga boxers who are aiming to get an Olympic slot. But that was scheduled for May. Pero malab. Well, May na ngayon, di ba? So hindi na talaga matutuloy in May. I don't know. There have been no news about a rescheduling for both the European and the world European, American, and the world qualifiers.
Nawala bali yung the great distraction the great recreation ng tao. Yun ang nawala because may cognitive dissonance na tsaka spiral of silence. Ayaw na nilang pakinggan yung news. They know how bad it is already. They want to hear the conflict of sports. They want to hear may kasama pang foul and all that. They want to hear that again. They're tired of the news that they're seeing right now. They know how bad it is. In a lockdown, may kakakabin fever na ang tao di ba?
Ako, okay lang. Kain lang ako ng kain.
Mahirap talaga yung Olympics because hindi natin alam kung matutuloy nga yung Olympics. Sayang na sayang because promise ka sa akin ni Ed Picson, isasama niya ako sa World Qualifying sa boxing sa Paris. Pero I will just take a rain check on that. Di ba, Ed?
You wish.
Hindi talaga mahirap mahirap talaga yung sports ngayon. And I've been reading also a lot of material coming from overseas about boxing protocols. Magkakaroon sila ng boxing in the US. I understand maybe even as early as late June. Mag-o-open up na in Las Vegas. Pero yung mga boxers, they will be sanitized in the ring just before they fight. And their cornermen will all be wearing masks. Pati yung referee.
Mas magkahiwala yung ring din.
Carlo.
Yung judges will be somewhere else. It will be done by
yung hindi matatalsikan.
no, they will not be there visually or in reality.
Actually,
virtual judging.
Last week there was a boxing promotion in Nicaragua. It was promoted by an ex-boxer. Kalimutan ko na yung pangalan, ex-world champion.
Rosendo Alvarez.
Yeah. And then, ang nangyari, yung crowd, hiwa-hiwalay talaga, parang every 4 seats lang merong tao. And then, ganun nga, no? Naka-maskara lahat, except the boxers, of course. Pero yung boxers, pagdating sa taas ng ring, hinose down sila ng disinfectant.
Yeah.
Diba?
Tama.
Ganun, pinakita na hino-hose down sila. Pero, ganun pa rin, sinasabi, di ba? Ang contamination comes from your mouth or your nose, di ba? Hindi naman nakamaskara yan. Ganun pa rin yun, di ba? Kahit na ilang galon ng alcohol ang ibuhos mo dyan sa katawan niyan, kung umubo yan or huminga yan sa harapan mo, at meron pala yan, may karga pala yan, sapul ka pa rin, di ba? So, mahirap.
Would you know, Carlo? Because the UFC has done one event, no audience, pero nagbanatan pa rin sa ring. And the WWE has done 2 in Florida. 1 or 2, if I'm not mistaken. Pero sa boxing kaya, sa basketball kaya yung mga ginagawa nilang precautions? Or?
Well, it's easier to do it dun sa mga controlled na ganon in fight sports because it's just 2 guys in the ring. And then, if you remember sa UFC, it's one and done. After you fight this month, pahinga ka for 2 or 3 months. And then, after that, dun ka parang lalaban ulit. So, in terms of like the number of sports, of participants, yun siguro yung magpapahirap sa basketball to come back. Sirs, it's not every day that we have all of you all together. So, I just want to ask, in your opinion, ano yung susi to be able to stay long in the sports industry? I mean, there have been people who have come and gone, people who have stayed for a couple of years, but you've been there for decades, entertaining us with your voice, with your knowledge of the games. What has been the key for you to sustain this and to still be here in the PBA, and for Sir Ed Picson, of course, involved with ABAP? Let's start with Dr. J.
Well, I think basically yung love for the game, love for, and I'm talking about the professional league right now, no, as well as of course collegiate. My tendency to want to always be present and watching games as much as possible, continue learning. I think that's what really has kept me in the ball game, as they say, no. At so now I really enjoy it. There is a lot of pleasure which I derive sitting there and talking about it, no. And I feel that I can still contribute. So I think that's the reason why I've lasted this long.
Sir Sev?
Suerte. There have been times that I have left the PBA and there have been alternative leagues that I have done which have added to my return to the PBA and where I would probably end this whole thing. Kasi if you do collegiate, kuminsan iba yung energy, iba yung challenge. Kasi pati turnover doon sa college, masaya. sa profession, no, we should not, they should take care of their turnovers. Sa college, hindi. Masaya ang turnover sa college kasi nagwawala ang lahat ng tao sa turnovers, pati errors, pati misses. Even the opportunity to do the MBA before was got to go around the country. I still enjoy that. I will miss yung pag-ikot natin sa Pilipinas, going around the country to visit eating places, the different places we go to. Andy, you and I, we've been to Palawan, we've done Cebu games,
Iloilo.
Bacolod. Yeah, that's bringing the game to the people. Wala rin entertainment sa probinsya eh. Kaya they're looking forward na dumating ang PBA eh. Even sa volleyball, nakakamiss because yun, isa pang challenge yung sport na yan. Kahit may net sa gitna yun, may contact pa rin yung sport na yan. So those are the challenges. I think nung sa CNN, ang sabi nila, the key, and I don't want to get medical about this, is the key for sports to come back will have to be a vaccine talaga. It's neither here or there. It's not something that we can just do. Tama si Willie Marshall, ang daming staff natin, tayo lang, ang dami na eh. So, I've been lucky, I've been fortunate, and I've been blessed to work with these three guys downstairs in different capacities. Ang hindi nyo alam, no, sometimes pag si Ed ang producer, ako kukunin niya announcer, o ako ang producer, si Ed ang kukunin kong announcer. Pati si kay Vilma Santos, sinasama ko ni Ed Picson nung araw eh. Pagka hindi siya pwede nun, ako bigla na lang ako ipupunta ron, ako nang magsasayan the star for all seasons, di ba? So, it's been a great run with so very generous people, including the guys who are in this frame, of course.
Sir Ed, what has been the key to your longevity here in the sports industry?
Para sa akin, one word encompasses that, enthusiasm. I started to think that I could be a voice personality on radio or even television when I was a young boy. Bata pa ako noon, radyo patrol pa lang noon, wala pang TV patrol. Ginagaya ko na yung mga field reporters noon. I would impersonate parang si Sev, no? In those days, yung mga field reporters. And then when I got the chance, pumasok talaga ako, nag-audition ako as a disc jockey. Ang una kong sports coverage, nakwento ko nga sa inyo dati ni Magu Carlo, di ba? Hi Alay. Pinatulan ko yun, di ba? Kasi para sa akin, it was a platform that could help me hone my talents, no? And when the opportunity to do basketball, pati yung powerboat racing, pinasok ko yan, horse racing, yung karera ng daga, medyo ay I put a line there. Pero montik na, nung walang-wala ako, pwede na rin to. Pero kung wala yung enthusiasm mo na yun, na when you see a sporting event, tapos hindi ka interesado dun sa nangyayari o mangyayari, you'll fall flat, di ba? So kailangan yung the fire in your belly, kumbaga, no, still has to be there, and wala namang expiration yan eh. Kaya kahit paano, no, these three guys, ako medyo semi-retired ako. Parati ko sinasabi semi-retired ako kasi anytime naman na may pagkakataon, I still have that fire in the belly when I see a nice basketball game or a boxing match. Minsan gusto kong sumingit, pero nga ng mic na yan, sasalita lang ako, di ba? But yun ang importante sa tingin ko, na interesado ka, and the enthusiasm still has to be there. Yan, nalulungkot lang ako kay paring Andy, hindi na pala umiinom. Pero yung enthusiasm mo sa fruit platter, nandiyan pa rin, di ba?
Yes, sir. Not sweet.
Yun,
Sir Ed, just speaking as a fan, kahit po mag-commentate kayo sa laban ng dalawang gagamba, manonood po ako.
Oy,
ako rin, boss.
The Dean,
Ako nga, first time ko na-meet si Ed Picson, akala ko kasama siya sa pork chop gang. Pero hindi pala. Tapos,
Wala. Hindi
Wala
pwede yan. Hindi pwede yan. Straight
So,
guy ka eh.
oh.
Straight ka. Huwag ka patawa. Akin na
anyway,
yun eh.
yung sikreto for longevity. Well, unang-una, of course, it's siguro it's a battered word. Yung passion. I think that translates to what Ed was saying, yung enthusiasm. That also translates to what Andy was saying, your love for the game. And what translates also to what Sev was saying, yung, the willingness to be able to learn and to share. I think that's very, very important. You have to really like and love what you're doing. Pangalawa, you have to be knowledgeable. Hindi ka pa pwedeng papasok sa studio o kaya get a microphone talking at wala kang masyadong preparation because mahalata ka eh. So knowledge is very important. Yung pangatlo siguro yung pakikisama. You have to have good teamwork with the production staff, with your partners in the broadcast panel, and everybody. Pakikisama with the commissioner, with the PBA, with the boxing promoters. Dapat importante yun eh, yung pakikisama mo. No? If not, you're not going to be too effective. And finally, I think this is very important also, yung accessibility mo. Because a lot of the fans will look to you to ask, ano pa nangyari? Ba't ba na-foul out ito? Sa tingin mo ba, talagang dapat ba flagrant yung tawag? So you have to be accessible to the fans because it's the fans that will give you the opportunity to continue to do what you love, which is covering the games for the fans. Yun lang.
Well said, Dean. Tatlo pa rin yun, parang Dean's list pa rin.
No. Kumapit na eh.
Sampu yan, nahiya lang.
Pero kanina, magdadagdag lang ako kung pwede pa. Nung sa Last Dance kanina, yung episode 5, pinalabas nila yung 1998 NBA All-Star Game. Natandaan ko yun because si Ronnie Nathals, Mr. Bombay, at saka ako, were the ones who covered it for Philippine TV. Nandun si Muhammad Ali, nandun din si Jack Nicholson. So, when I saw that on the screen kanina, watching the Last Dance, it really brought back a lot of good memories. Then they showed Spike Lee kanina, hindi nila nabanggit yung katabi ni Spike Lee, Earl the Pearl Monroe. Dapat naman siguro nabigyan nila ng konting mention that NBA legend was watching the All-Star Game besides Spike Lee, si Earl Monroe. Yun lang, konting dagdag.
Konti ah.
Overtime.
Talagang gusto ko yung lahat inantay si Sir Ed eh. Yun yung gusto ko eh.
Yan eh. Years in the making yung queuing na yun. Alam namin kung sino yung susundot eh.
Well, the chemistry is still certainly there.
Ano, tinginan na lang tayo?
Hindi. Ako,
paano
kung wala kayong sasabihin, ako, meron din akong sasabihin. Yung sa Last Dance, balikan natin yun. Yung Last Dance niya. Wala si Luke
Binigyan
Longley.
ng pagkakataon niya.
Oh, pambihira. Wala si Luke Longley. Ayun, pag-usapan natin. Starting 5 in the last 3 of the 6 championships ng Chicago Bulls. But yet, for this particular docu-series, walang interview si Luke Longley. Natanda natin in 2018, si Longley was the one who went on the record to castigate Chot Reyes for instigating the brawl with Australia by unleashing quote-unquote thugs. I also remember 2012, pumunta rito si Luke Longley and we treated him like royalty. So, dapat naman siguro wala siya dun sa Last Dance because of what he has done. Yun lang.
And on that note, sir, on that note, we thank you so much for joining us here on 2OT. The Dean, Quinito Henson, Sir Ed Picson, Sir Sev Sarmenta, and Dr. J. Andy JAO. Thank you so much. It was an honor for you to be able to be joining us in this show. Marami pong salamat. And, in behalf of Magumar John, thank you for the camaraderie and thank you for all the lessons that you have taught.
Salamat.
Camaraderie at Picson, we'll see you around.
You're around.
Yo.
Dr. J, sa big
Right. Partner.